how do we recover doesn't really mean that we're in dire straits today financially on a daily basis. It just means our trajectory is not good, as I said before, and it's unsustainable in the direction that we're going. So how are we going to turn this ship out in the water? And one is through debt collection that we're doing right now. We have a full-time person now dedicated to debt collection. And we'll go over the numbers here in just a minute. But we're going after the money, we're getting the money, and the second one is recovering the deeds. Last year we had over 400 deeds owned by debtors, and we've got that down now by 25%. This program is a fairly new program, and it seems to be working quite well, and there'll be some details on that later. Where necessary, we're going to have to foreclose on the properties, because when we consolidate timeshare unit, obviously you have to own 100% of the deeds, and if there's one deed lingering out there somewhere, you can't sell that property. And sometimes it's going to mean foreclosure. An example of that is we have a lady that lives in Turkey with a Turkish name who hasn't paid assessments in, I don't know, years. She owes about $10,000. We found her on Facebook. I messaged her and just said, please just send us the deeds. We'll forgive all your debt, because we know she's not going to come back from Turkey and write us a check and save us the foreclosure money. But we didn't hear anything. Twice I messaged her. She won't respond. So in cases like that, we're going to have to foreclose on these properties. The foreclosure cost right now is estimated to be $1,400, but we just found out there might be another small step, so that can go up a little bit. The bottom line is the more deeds we can recover through our in-house person, every deed we recover is $1,400 that we don't have to spend foreclosing on it. And of course, the time involved with foreclosing is another issue, a couple of months at best. The other part of recovery, of course, is consolidation of the interval units. And I think I beat that to death in the newsletters. Does anybody have any questions about the consolidation process? And we have a slide coming on that. We're going to talk about how it's going to look to an owner. But I think everybody here has an idea what that means when I say consolidation. Okay. And then, of course, when we consolidate, we sell off the vacated units, and we expect to get at least $200,000, depending on the condition and the location of the unit, for each unit that we sell. Every unit we sell is that much money that goes into our renovation account, and one less unit at approximately $150,000 that we don't have to renovate, because the units will be sold off privately as is. We're not going to do anything. And then also, the bank construction loan is going to help us out a lot. If things go well with consolidation, it's not going to be a significant event in the long run. But the bank construction loan allows us to go in, instead of waiting on every 6 months for a new bunch of assessments to come in, we're able to continue the working and not stopping the work, starting the work, take a little money out of the bank, sell a home, put the money back on the loan, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what the bank loan is all about. It's a cushion for us to get there. Okay, so more about debt collection and recovery. We're offering these debtors a quick, easy way out if they'll accept it now. Because again, we know we're not going to get the $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 that some of these people owe us. We're going after some portion of that money and saying, and there's a nice, very professional and strong letter that says, if you will just settle with us now directly and pay this much money, which might be half or less of what they owe, and give us back the deed, we will forgive you of your debts. Because we know we can't take them to court, and we know we don't have the finances to do that for 300 different owners. And lo and behold, many people are jumping on it and giving us back the money. The parameters we set for this type of negotiation was they have to pay us more than a timeshare exit would cost, because timeshare exit people are good people who paid their assessments, but they've decided for one reason or another it's time to go. And we're not going to shortchange that. So that's why we set that parameter. And of course, again, return the title and pay the deeds. To date, the results of this program, we've collected, and this is within the year, $70,140. And we've got another $3,052 that checks in the mail. They made the deal, they made the promise, we expect to get that payment. And we've recovered 106 deeds. So that's over 14, it's about $140,000 that we save by collecting those deeds back that we don't have to foreclose on now. And again, this process is just getting warmed up, and we're moving forward with it as we go. 10 properties right now that we know, for example, like the lady in Turkey, ones are people that are deceased, and we know we can't collect the money. They're into foreclosure now, and that process is ongoing. And we will continue to put groups of 10 and up to 20 clusters into foreclosure when we absolutely know deed recovery or debt collection is impossible. As I said, this program is ongoing. We'll continue it until we bring everything out of it we can, and then we'll move on from there. Any questions about that? Yeah, there's the numbers. We have 302 remaining to collect because we've already covered about 25% of it. Obviously, we're getting the low-hanging fruit right now, so the deeper we get into this, probably it's going to be the harder to collect. But we don't know where that line is yet because people are still responding to us. If we had to recover all these deeds through foreclosure alone, you see it would be a huge hit to us, $422,800. That's what we're trying to avoid as much of that as we can. And we've already talked about that number and the fact that that's going on right now. Okay, consolidation. What does this mean to the owner who's forced to consolidate? I would say forced right now. It's going to be asked for the moment. We hope, we have target units. We've already identified the first four, units 2, 4, 6, and 22. And we identified the reasons that we talked about earlier, the least desirable units. The goal is that we're going to vacate those units. Next in line, we haven't made a big stamp on it yet, but it looks like units 51, 2, and 3. Because they're up on the highway, there's road noise, there's no lake view, and they've got a high level of delinquencies and vacancies and so forth. What we're saying is we're going to move every owner into at least an equal and hopefully even a better unit when we can. So we just hope that if your unit is targeted for a vacate unit, you will realize that it's for the good of everyone, including yourself, if we can turn this around financially by consolidation and selling off the units. But we anticipate there's going to be someone, for some reason, doesn't want to leave that unit because I was born here, my kids were born here, and whatever happens. And you're going to see more newsletters coming out over the next couple of months before the annual meeting on how we anticipate dealing with that. But we have a plan, is all I'm going to say right now to that, because we want this consolidation to go swiftly and thoroughly, and just get as many of these unit backs, as much money in the bank as we can. There's going to be no cost to the owner for consolidating. The title transfer fees will be paid out of the consolidation fund. It's just you're going to go to a different unit the next year that you come in. We already talked about the sale we expect at $200,000 and maybe a little more for each unit. And we want to assure you that 100% of the revenues from a sale from a consolidated unit are going to go to this process. And that is the renovation consolidation process. There will be some overhead fees. There will be some legal fees. The young lady who's working this program now, her salary will be taken out of the consolidation budget. But we're making far more than her salary is costing us, and will as we go forward. But what I'm saying is none of the money will go into common area, any private owner, or any other thing other than renovating these units. Okay? Yes, sir. Microphone.
Is the payroll or the salary you're going to pay this person that's working on selling the units that we decided to vacate, is that going to be, is it in the budget for 2023 or is that a separate budget?
No, it's not. And there's a separate budget that we just established a bank account called a consolidation bank account. All the consolidation money, this $70,000+ and any other new that comes in will go into that account. And she will be paid out of that account. And what we don't want to do is put it into the main budget because it's specifically for a certain area. So there's no use driving up that main budget with higher assessments when we're getting the income to pay this. So, you know, simple math, for every 10 units that we can sell is $2 million that we use to pay down or pay on to the loan itself. That's a significant amount of money. And then again, every unit that we are able to sell to consolidation is one less at approximately $150,000 that we have to vacate. So quite a savings there. There's going to be some people that just doesn't work for it. But we put out the survey, and the survey spoke loud and clear that most people want renovation. Obviously, the vote that we just counted is loud and clear. And we cannot let the few people that, for whatever reason, a fixed income, I can't afford it, I don't want to pay it, I don't care. One person on the phone told me, I don't care if this place falls to the ground, I'll just go home when it happens. You know, I can't deal with that mentality, but we've got to pay attention to the majority. That's how we operate as a country, and that's how we're going to operate at Treetop Village. The majority, I think, is spoken. So the point is, we have an exit policy for that. For whatever reason it doesn't work for a timeshare owner, there's a way out. 80%, according to the statistics we read, of legacy timeshare communities in the United States don't have a way to exit. You have to die, or just quit paying your bills and then go into all of that. 20% do, and we've been told ours is one of the best exit policies that 2 lawyers told us that they'd ever seen. So we think we've created a fair exit if it doesn't work. Okay, again, just to go over this, some of the potential. Considering today that 40% are non-producing, and it will be a bigger number next year, there's no doubt about that as we move on into this. Today, if we could just magically wave a wand and consolidate everybody of the units that are available, we could consolidate 18 units, leaving us only 28 to renovate. Obviously, we can't do that, but that's just to give you an idea of where we sit today. 5 units sold. I think we get to 5 pretty quick. There's $1 million. We can probably get to 10 pretty quick, and that's $2 million. Why did I say probably? Because we've never done this before. Other people have. I've talked to them. I spent a lot of time with the board president. Osage Vista is just down the road from us over at the Regalia area. The president of that board went through this whole process, and I've spent a lot of time with him asking a lot of questions, and he's telling me the speed bumps they hit and what they wish they would have done, but they didn't, and I'm getting to learn, the board's getting to learn from that. But we haven't done it before. If we could get those 18 units vacated, we're looking at $3.6 million in sales just at $200,000, probably a little more than that. And now we know the number. Renovating 28 units at $150,000 a unit would cost us $4.2 million. And again, the sales are going to compensate for a lot of that. You know, and as we pay this loan off, what it's going to mean is the loan it's set up. Well, look, I think I got a slide on that. We get to that. Any questions so far? Thomas Construction, 2 years ago, we put out the call to the area for people who we decided were reputable people that we would deal with. 3 people showed interest, 2 people showed up, and the pick that we made was Thomas Construction. And again, Thomas, you know, they've been here a long time, founded in '75. They're one of the highest rated contractors in the area. You can go find their website and read all about them. They've been voted the best and so far of all the magazines. And the one thing that we were really pleased to see is that Central Bank, who most likely this loan is going to go through, we're talking to 2 banks now, but I suspect Central Bank will get it. Their eyes lit up when we said Thomas Construction because they said we've dealt with them a number of times in condo renovations, and we fully trust them. If you've got them on your team, we're happy. So I think that went pretty well for us. Thomas Construction, in our most recent meeting a couple of weeks ago, said that they'd like to do 3 to 4 units at a time, that it should take 6 to 7 weeks to complete these units. And that's with no unexpected surprises, but you know there's going to be some unexpected surprises, but that's where we think we are today. They'll finish those 3 to 4 units, and then they'll move to the next group of 3 to 4 units. If things go pretty much reasonably as expected, we're looking at about 2 years to complete the project. Never goes perfect, might go some months more, I can't sit here and promise you that, but that's it, if it goes the way we think it's going to go. We've kind of talked about some of this. The purpose of the bank construction loan, we already have the vote and we know what that is. According to the central bank, the loan rate, the interest rate on the loan will be prime plus either 0.5% or 1%, depending on how our final financials shake out and how much confidence they have in us. But that's the rate you can expect. And obviously we just had a 3/4 jump in prime. We hope it's going to level off right now, but again, we have no crystal ball for that. We're calculating the payoff for 10 years, but as it says, as we continue to put money back in toward this, we hope to get it down significantly less than 10 years on payoff. If consolidation works, it will be way less than 10 years. So for the, this is very important to everyone, and especially the private owners, because we've had a number of private owners go, wait a minute, you're going to borrow this money, you're going to fix up timeshare units. If the loan defaults, are they coming after me? That's a good question. It's my question to the bank. So the bank PP I met with less than 2 weeks ago assured us that there will be no property tied to this loan. That's no timeshare property deeds and no private owner deeds. There will be no common land tied to this loan. And it's very typical, not many banks do these types of loans, they're so unusual. The collateral for the loan is the special assessment itself, which is only going to the timeshare owners. And so I asked the question directly, what happens if we default? And she said, well, we've done a lot of timeshare loans in this lake region. We've never had a default yet. But if there's a default, the bank takes over collection of the assessments. They take it away from the association. And this is the legality of it all. And this will be in the loan agreement. We pledge this and we give them the assessments. So now the bank has the horsepower to go after whatever owners are remaining for this special assessment. But the big foot stomper here is no property or common land will be tied to this bank loan. Okay, last annual meeting we had a renovation order drawing, because everybody was jumping up, I want mine first and so forth, so we tried to make it fair. We drew it in the meeting, the numbers out that. So starting at 62 in the top left corner, read down that row, and then jump to the second row and read down that row and so forth. That's the order that was chosen. The red up there are the units that have been targeted for renovation, so obviously they're going to come out. I'm just showing you everything. Every unit is there right now. This is the order it's going to go in unless something unusual comes up. For example, we cannot block the roads if we do this, so we got to go to the next one and maneuver around. But this is the order we're going to follow if it's at all possible to follow, because that's what we told the owners we were going to do. And if we can see, once we're going to know a lot more after we do the first 4 than we know today. So will Thomas Construction. If we see there's a faster way or a better way to do it, of course we will. It's more efficient way.
Does the order go horizontal or vertical?
No, it goes vertical. Starting at 62, go 110, 66, and so forth, and then jump to the next row and go top to bottom. So sorry, 102, it's going to be a while. Yes, sir.
This renovation, you're talking about tearing down all the walls, taking off the roof. I'm not understanding.
Jeff Stassi, yeah, good question. Jeff Stassi on the finance committee, who's done lots of major construction, did a perform. And this is where the $150,000 number comes from. So, and I'm doing this from memory, but it's all new windows, insulated, nice insulated windows, flooring, appliances, rip out all the old bathrooms and tubs and put in showers only, all new bathrooms, flooring, paint, of course, and any exterior work that needs to be patched and done, paint the units. We continue to look at the roofs. We pretty much got the roofs under control right now. Go ahead.
No. I'm sorry, I'm in.
Decks and stairs.
Yeah, I'm in building, unit 61 and 102. I just wanted you to know that, yeah.
And what about it again?
I was concerned about how far down they was gonna go. I would assume that's from the inspection, the contractor saying, we need to do this, and this. But it pretty much a baseball figure, and he's come up with $150,000.
Yes, and he actually went to spent a lot of time at this, going through all of the suppliers of all of these things and getting bids. For example, all the window bids that we got from Quaker Windows, which is a huge new factory that was built just outside of Eldon. RP Lumber and several other places where he's gotten all of these bids from. So that's our best guess at the moment. But again, we're tearing into 40-year-old units, and we're going to find things that we didn't expect. We're sure of that. And I hope we also find ways that we thought we were going to have to do something, but we really don't have to do that much. It's our best guess at the moment. We've taken Jeff's performa, we've given it to Thomas Construction. They're going over it themselves now because, you know, they're skilled at all of this. We also have another secret weapon. We hired our ground supervisor now that we hired months ago is a certified building inspector. So he's now he works for us full time as a ground supervisor, but part of his duties are to go into these units and turn in the same report you would get, the inspection that you would get if you hired your house inspector. So that's given us, again, a much better idea and a leg up on what we're up against. But again, I've said it in the newsletters, and I'll say it one more time. We don't have a crystal ball, and when we start ripping this apart, we'll know a lot more. One thing for sure is when they're all put back together, they're going to be sweet, and it's going to be a very pleasant experience, higher property values when you come back here.
When you say higher property value, so if I decide I want to sell my unit, who would I sell it to?
Well, you would go either on our website and broadcast it. On our website, Deb, you might know how many, we have a form. People who are interested in buying fill out forms and say, when one comes up for sale, tell me. You'll see on our website, we have for sale by owner for timeshare, and we've got those listed. And owners have sold a number off of there. Of course, you've also got your own other resources, Redwood, your own realtor, and so forth. Sell it to wherever you think the market is. You know, one thing for sure is whatever they're worth right now, they're going to be worth a lot more when they're fully renovated. I mean, the one thing we have going for us, we set on Treetop Cove. And it's one of the most pristine little coves on the lake, and it's in the middle of everything. It's one of the most desirable locations on this lake. So, I mean, I'm excited as a homeowner myself, even though I'm a private homeowner. This property is going to be talked about, and they're already, Hello Profile is already talking about, they want to do an article about this once we get it going. We're going to go for publicity, and we're going to let the world know Treetop Village is a sweet gem on the Lake of the Ozarks. If you would like to be, that'll come with our marketing effort. Yes, sir.
When will the renovation start? Is that the next slide?
January 10th. No,
I'm unit 62.
No, that's good. Oh, you're on your 62. Lucky guy. We're looking at no later than February right now. And that just depends on how quick we get this bank loan going. That's what Thomas Construction is capable of doing.
9 week 25, so I'll get a new unit.
Oh my God.
Wow.
You'll be set.
That is
goal.
exciting.
Okay, moving on. What happens if you're displaced on the year that you're supposed to come in here and have your unit? Well, right now there are two options. If we have other units that are available, we'll move you into that, if you'll accept that. So that's a no money deal. Secondly, I've negotiated a deal with Interval International, and probably many or most of you know what that is, trading your unit and so forth. But we have some hardcore traders, that's all they do with their units, and we have others that have never heard of International. But I negotiated a deal because I called the executive manager for our group and said, listen, we need help. We're doing this renovation. I explained it. People are going to be displaced. How can we do this? And I was stunned when he came back and said, well, here's what we'll do. This happens all the time, and we want to support you, and so on and so forth. Any member, any timeshare owner who is not a member, and there's a membership annual fee and all kinds of stuff that goes with this to be a part of it, we're going to give them a free membership for 2 years. You can now go into International when all this starts out and pick a property anywhere in the world. It could be here at the Lake of the Ozarks, Branson, or France, and you can go to that property instead. So that's the option for the people who are dislocated. And it's only going to be once. It's going to be that year, and then after that, it's going to be renovated. What we're not going to do is say we're going to give you your keys back. Because think about this. If you renovate your private home to the extent we're talking about, and you have to go stay in a hotel for a couple of weeks, the bank doesn't stop your mortgage. That's just something you gotta do. But we're trying to give people an option. Where can you go on vacation instead? And when you do the international deal, you don't have to go on the week that your Treetop property is. Pick any week in the year that's open anywhere. So that's the dislocation policy. Okay, here's the big slide you've all been waiting for, which is the 2023 assessments. Before I start talking, I'll just let you ignore it. For a private owner, the assessments changed, I think, about $3 for the year. When you add your regular assessment and the special assessment that was programmed to go 2 more years. So for the next 2 years, you're paying within $3 of what you would have paid anyway, because we stopped the special assessments across the board. And why are we up in the common expenses? Because if anybody's been looking around the village, pretty good things are happening. We've got a new employee that I've been trying to get him to come to work for us for several years now, named Victor. And Victor is a workhorse. He loves a chainsaw, and he loves outdoor work. If you just drive around and look at the brush that's been cut, the trees that have been cleared, and all the work that's been done, that's why we're upping, our common area. We're going to continue with that, removing the dead trees and so forth. So that's what the common assessment is for. 2 bedrooms, your total assessment. Now, of course, I'm going to make a big point. This is only your regular assessment. Your loan construction assessment is in addition to this. So the 2 bedroom at $688. This year we're breaking it down to show you where that $688 comes from. As I said before, the timeshare assessment has 2 parts: the maintenance part and the common area part. Our governing documents say that each unit, whether it's public or timeshare, must pay the same common assessment. So how would you do that if it was filled up to 51 owners in a unit? You would take $31.50 divided by 51, which is about $60-some, and you would say that's how much your week is because you divided that number. But in reality, 40% are non-producing, 40% of the units are not. So always in the past, up until this coming year, timeshare owners have not paid what the governing documents say they must pay, because today you've got 31 weeks that are occupied, and you multiply that times the number you came up with, means you're paying about, that unit pays about $1,900 and some dollars, when a private unit is paying $31.50. And I go back and say, this is not something we're making up. This is what our governing documents say we must do. And so finally, we're bringing it out to the open, and that's why the common assessment part of this is higher, because you'll see in the master budget, there's what it would have been if you were 100% full, and how much we're losing because you're not, and then there's about a $41 or $42 makeup charge that has to go in so that your unit pays, the timeshare unit pays the same as a private. Is that understood? It's something that's a whole new concept, but again, it's getting us back in our line with our revenue lines. It's for the interval units, this is an 18% increase in what we did last year. Why 18%? Because we already talked about this. Inflation was 16.5, and we're losing over $650,000 in income from assessments that we're not collecting. And the increase we had last year was very small, which is not keeping up with inflation and the exits and the deficit. This number keeps us at the standards that we're operating today. Doesn't allow us to get any better, but as we work through inflation and through these other problems we're having, that's where we are today. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Bob, when I look at the maintenance assessments, and look at the renovation budgets, once the renovation is done, does my maintenance assessment still be at the same level? In other words, what are we maintaining after the renovation? It's going to cost me $585, and you do that by 50, you have a pretty chunk of change there. So, what's going to happen after the unit has been renovated?
Well, yeah, good question. First of all, when it's fully renovated, you can expect the HVACs, which will all be new, and the washers and dryers and all the appliances aren't going to be failing at the high rate they are today. That's going to bring the cost down. Insulated windows versus the zero insulation that we have today. I mean, you can imagine what it costs to heat one of these places on a winter day when the whole place is glass and not insulated. Energy's going to go down. I'm not saying assessments are going to take a dive, because we've got to keep up with inflation, number one. Number two, if we want to raise our standards even higher, that's going to cost a little more. But overall, a fully renovated unit sitting next to a non-renovated unit is going to be cheaper to pay for on any given year. That's my assessment. That answer the question?
Yeah, that's my common sense assessment, that once we renovate it, my maintenance should decrease. We should get into account more efficient units once we renovate them to maybe lower that maintenance assessment.
Yes. And not only that, let's go back again and talk about consolidation. Right now, 40% of the, let me say it another way, 60% of the owners are paying for 100% of these old properties. If we can get this down to a more efficient, instead of 30 people in a unit, you got 49 or 50 or even 51 in a unit, you're going to pay less per person to support a renovated property. And again, I'm not saying that we're going to take a big dive, but it's certainly going to be much more efficient than it is now. Sir, you have a question back there? Somebody raise your hand. Okay. This will all be published again, and this is what the bill will be when it comes. And again, I want to emphasize that this is not including the loan construction payback assessment. Okay, that's the end of my briefing. Now any question you want to talk about?
How are we going to know when a unit is going to be fully renovated? I understand it. But say unit 61, you got 49 people that want to get rid of it. You got the other 3 or 4 that don't want to. What kind of enforcement are we going to put up on those people so that we can sell it as a private unit?
Okay, right now, nothing's official at this point, but this is where the board's going next, and hopefully we're going to get there by the annual meeting. We're going to, immediately, Monday morning, we're going to start consolidation, now that we know where we are and what we're going to do, and we're going to see how easy this goes. My expectation is we're going to hit snags by people who don't want to move. There's 2 ways to handle that. First, you can appeal to their sense of community and their sense of finances, that how this is better for everyone, and I'm sorry that your firstborn came here first, but it doesn't work anymore. Second, and if we can do, Treetop Village today does not follow the traditional legacy timeshare model of assessing for individual freestanding units. Because typically, it would be every unit is responsible for that unit. When an air conditioner goes out today, and it's $5,000, everybody across the board shares that bill. The traditional model is an air conditioner goes out in your unit, your 51 members share that bill. So think about this. First of all, when these units are fully renovated, these air conditioners and all these other appliances and so forth aren't going to be failing like they are now. And if they do, they're going to be under warranty in the first few years. And so it's not going to be much of a threat to you. The biggest threat to the dues-paying members right now, the members in good standing in the timeshare units, is that one person who refuses to move and allows to do what we want to do. So if we were to adopt an amendment that says, starting at the amendment passing, you're now responsible for your unit. So imagine being that one or two persons in Unit 61 that says, we don't want to leave, and we say, okay, that's your prerogative, and by the way, we need a $10,000 this and that and the other, and you two people have to split that. I think pretty quick they might change their mind on moving into a unit that's fully occupied, that's fully renovated. That's my recommendation. The board has not made any decisions, and this comes from a lot of reading and a lot of smart people that I've talked to about this, but I see no threat at all under a renovated condition for a nearly full or full unit that you have to split an air conditioner amongst 50 people. I see the huge threat being consolidation doesn't work. That means we're going to eventually go out of business. It's going to happen if it doesn't work. So we got to make it work. We got to make it work. I hope appealing to their sense of finances and community, saying, hey, you're the one person here, you cannot stop the show. I hope that'll work. I'd like to hear any opinion on that. What you all think? Changing this model over to what I just described.
How are you going to assess a unit that should be put on the market, or is it just, how many units are out there that have less than 50% occupation? Or what area are you pushing for more so than others?
We could not assess them for the loan assessment payback because they're not going to get a renovation. And that's the other thing we're going to tell the one or two holdouts in any given unit. By the way, you're not going to get renovated. So guess what? All this stuff's going to keep breaking and keep happening at a much higher rate than if you would just move down the hill to the newly renovated unit.
Whoa.
Wait 1 second. Yes, as Rebecca said, we hope that a move to an equal or a more desirable location is going to be an incentive. That and the overall finances of the community and the person individually who doesn't want to move. Yes, sir.
Bob, you just threw out something there that probably went over everybody's head. If one person says, no, I'm not going to move, and you say, no, we're not going to renovate it, what about the rest of the people who have paid their loan assessment and renovation fees? What do we say to them? Gee, there's one person holding up the whole show in this unit, and therefore it won't get renovated? That makes no sense.
Well, if we don't renovate that unit, we saved $150,000. And if we don't get her $450 loan payback assessment, we're short $450.
And then those people, the other 49 people have already moved to another unit, so there's only one or two people in that unit that's holding everything up?
No, you didn't quite put it in that fashion. You're saying to me, if one holdout of the entire 50 people in that unit says, no, I'm not moving on, no, I'm not paying, the other 49 or so people in that unit will be penalized for not having it renovated. You can't move everybody and say, hey, you're moving everybody to a new unit, and now we only have 2 people left in that unit.
No, they wouldn't be penalized, because let's just go with the assumption that the vast majority said, we get it, we're moving. We show them all the options, and they're gone. And now there are one or two holdouts that say, I'm not going. So the people that moved, they're paying their payback special assessment, they're gonna get their unit renovated. It's all just like we talked about. The one or two people that says no, we're gonna say, okay, well, here's your bill for the year, because you have to pay all the maintenance for that unit, just like everybody else does.
Maybe trying to answer his question. You're talking about a situation where you're down to 1, 2, or 3 people in a unit. Everybody else has deeded it back or accepted moving to a different unit. So there's 3 people left, or 2 people, or 1 person left. Nobody else is going to be impacted. Everybody else has either left the unit, deeded it back, or moved someplace else. You got 1 person that's holding out, doesn't want to they want to sell it. If he gives them the deed, they can sell it. He's holding out, they can't sell it. That guy is stuck with that unit. Nobody else is hurt. All other 50 people have gone elsewhere, or sent their deed back. They're not being penalized. They're not being penalized. Those 50 people have moved on. You're down to 1 person in 1 unit that's holding out.
The assumption is that you can move all the rest of the people out of that unit. That may not be the case. There may not be enough available renovated units to move all the other people out of that unit. And what do we do when we say we can't find you another comparable unit we need to move into? We need to renovate this one.
They have to figure that out. Maybe they can only sell 5 units. Maybe they can only sell 7 units. You know, the assumption is they can sell 10. And so that's the target. So, and they've already got enough weeks that have been given up. There's 11 and a half units in the material sent out. The number of weeks that have already been deeded or people are not paying, that's 11 and a half units right now. You read the material before you came to the meeting, you would know that. I read the material. So you would know that. So they already have 11 and a half units. If they can move people around, they've got 11 and a half units. Nobody's going to get hurt unless they're stubborn.
So those units are up for sale. And say the 11 and a half, you sell successfully 8 and a half. Now we're down to 3 and a half. You cannot tell me that there may not be a case where we don't have enough units to move the paying people out of those units, and 1 or 2 stubborn holdouts are holding up the whole show.
I understand what they're trying to do. If there's 3 units and there's 3 people holding up those 3 units, they don't get renovated. They save $450,000. It doesn't, the loan doesn't get. We don't have to take a loan out. And so we get done paying, 3 months early because those 3 people held out. They couldn't develop those 3 units. These are all decisions the board is going to have to make as this process moves along. There's a lot of what ifs. And I think they're addressing a lot of that. And so when you get into the, how things happen, then we're going to find out, okay, maybe we only sold 9 units. We're stuck with 2 units that we don't have to renovate. That's another problem that they have to deal with 4 years from now. But, in that situation, if there are 4 people that held out on those 2 units, he's kind of saying it's going to be their problem. Not anybody else's, not your problem. And unless you're one of the 4. No, not going to be anybody else's problem. It could be those 4 people in those 2 units that they couldn't sell. Their problem. Not yours. Not yours. They're fixing your problem.
And Mr. Accountant, sorry, I forgot your name.
Jones.
You have my business card. And
Yes.
we've said this over and over and over. this is the best plan we can come up with. Smart guys like you that do what you do, we want to hear any better idea or modifications of this plan. I mean, we listen to everybody, except the people that just yell and scream at us because they want everything and they don't want anything. We don't listen too much to those guys. But no, really, I'm serious. We want to hear your input on this. I mean, go back and read the information we put out. Think about what we said today. Call me, email me, do anything. We'll get a Zoom meeting together with the board if you've got some great ideas that we should hear. What I know for sure 100% is if we don't change something, we're going out of business. This is not going to exist as a timeshare community much longer. As a private owner, and we talked about this in our own, and I think I can speak, I know for Rebecca and the board people, but as a private owner, what I don't want to see is this community collapse, the timeshare side of this community collapse, because it's going to get dilapidated. The grounds are going to go, to crap. Nothing good comes from that for a private or a timeshare owner. I don't want to live in a community where the place is falling apart. And then what's going to happen, what will happen, is a developer will come in and they'll buy it out for dimes on the dollar. They'll scrape off all the timeshare buildings and what if they start throwing up condominiums all around the shoreline? I, as a private owner, don't want to live in that community. And, I've got an investment here too that I care about. I want to live in beautiful Treetop Village that looks just like it looks now, only renovated, the way it was in the early days. Yes, ma'am.
And also, they'll never allow them to have boat docks. No boat docks in front of their homes.
No,
Everybody has to have the boat dock in the back.
Exactly, and I bought my place. I'm pretty new here compared to many of these people. I bought in January of 17. When I walked in the front door and looked at the view, and looked at how that property set, and all my buddies down here, and even the real estate person was saying, you need to make sure you got a boat dock in front of your house. And I looked around and they said, you're going to want to walk out to this boat dock right after your backyard. And I said, no. If I have a boat dock, everybody else has a boat dock, and all I hear is squeaking metal, and the view is terrible. I love looking out at Treetop Cove and looking at a pristine natural cove surrounded by trees and beautiful homes. That's my personal. Yeah, yes, ma'am. Let's go back to our names and our units so we get also recorded.
Okay, Vicky Blackwell, units 61 and 102. We own 3 weeks in those units. And did I miss the answer to the question that was asked at the beginning of the meeting about our voting opinion? Because we were never contacted.
No, you didn't miss it, because that's the next thing we're going to do after we talk about all the finances. That's the last thing on our agenda. Okay, if nothing else, what's going to happen next? I already told you, it's Monday morning, we start consolidation. We'll continue our bank loan talks. We'll be with Thomas Construction frequently as we work through all of this. You're going to get newsletters and more emails through our MailChimp system. Thank you, Deborah, very much. She's got that all mastered. This meeting will be posted video online. The budget will be posted as fast as I can convert it to get it posted. The slideshow will be there. We have no secrets. So you all have my phone number. You can email board@treetopvillage.net, and you pick every board member with that. So for God's sakes, if you've got an idea, please speak up. We want to hear it. We've got a lot of amazingly smart people that I've met. I say that, I don't mean they're dumb ones, but I mean the lawyers, the accountants, all these people. And I'm visiting next week with a lawyer that's coming here that's interested in what we're doing, and he just wants to come and give us some ideas. Heck yeah, my door's wide open. I love to get those smart people involved. And if nothing else, and you can jump back in later if something flies through your mind, but let's go to what we said was the last item, which is our voting member system. First of all, I agree with everybody that's complaining about it right now, it's not right. But I want to tell you where it was when I got on this board 3.5 years ago. We were within 1 or 2 people of not having enough voting members filled that we didn't have a quorum to even take a legal vote. And this is after I got into the job, when I could get into the files and start reading a lot of stuff, talking to the employees, and basically feel that shiny. We had a board member who owned a week here who was voting for 5 other weeks just because they had to fill the slots up. I learned that when they got into a crisis and needed to fill these slots, either a board member, or the property manager, not Deborah, because we had a different one, would just pick up the phone to people that they knew would kind of support what the agenda was and say, will you be the voting member? Sure, I'll do it. And that's how they pick voting members. We didn't agree with that. And it does not agree with our governing documents. Our governing documents say it has to be a basic ballot process. You have to get nominated or nominate yourself, and you have to have an election. And we don't think it's fair to handpick voting members. Or go out and just say, I'm going to vote for 3 or 4 other units just because they need a voting member. So we rewrote the system. You have to, the way it works today is, if your unit does not have a voting member, and I think Tracy got 6 right now that aren't filled, they get a letter that says 2. Yeah, oh yeah, it's because we just ran the cycle that I'm going to describe right now. Unit didn't have a voting member, every member of that unit gets a letter. You don't have a voting member, you need a voting member, and here's why. And you need to either nominate somebody or nominate yourself, and you've got 30 days to turn in that nomination. And include your bio if you want to do that. If we get 1 person back in 30 days, you're the voting member. If we get 2 or more people back, now we run an election. And we notify them, these 2 or 3 people are on the ballot, here's their bios. Obviously, most don't know each other, but here's at least a bio. And then we run an election, and that's how the voting members selected. So we think we made quite a bit of progress to make it more right. But now the part I don't agree with is, why can't I contact my voting member? I agree. And here's the reason, because when I was talking to these voting members, I didn't talk to all of them, but a dozen or more, the typical response when I said, can these people contact you? And they say no. Because I own 1 week at Treetop, I'm going to come down here in the summer and my family, and we're going to enjoy our week. I don't want 50 other people calling and emailing me all year long. I don't want to deal with it. So if I have to do that, I'm not going to be a voting member. So we were going to lose, if we did that, a bunch of voting members. Now, maybe that's okay. And I'm saying maybe because I don't have the final answer right now. There's no end game to what I'm saying. Do we just say part of your job as a voting member is you must share your personal contact information and deal with these people? Or do we come up with another system that at least gives them the opportunity to do that? Do we require it? And do we say to the next voting member in the election, you cannot do this unless you sign this document that says you'll disclose your contact information to all your other 50 members? My thoughts right now are somewhere in the middle would be, say, if you're a voting member, you're expected to communicate with these people. So maybe we give you an email address, because maybe they don't want to give out their personal info. Okay, your email now is 61@treetopvillage.net. And you're expected to go in there and talk to people. But if you're a really good voting member, and you realize your responsibility, you'll tell all your other people in your unit who you are and how to contact you. But should we force that on them? And I really don't think so. And the reason I say is because I don't think we're going to end up with enough voting members. And I think even if somebody says, that's such a great idea and I'm going to do it, when they feel their 50th phone call, and their week is not for 9 months from now, they go, I don't want to be dealing with Treetop business. I'll deal with it next 4th of July when I'm there. So I don't have an answer. I'm absolutely convinced it needs to be fixed, and we at least need to give them the opportunity to deal with their constituents. And I'll open up. I'd love to hear ideas on that right now. Yes, ma'am.
Right now,
Yes, you have a phone call. Williams. What I want to know is, you've known definitely since board meeting back in March that you didn't have all the voting numbers. And you worked on this financing and all that. But you were aware that you probably didn't have all the timeshare owners as voting numbers. But yet you didn't do anything about getting the voting numbers for some of our units until I contacted you in September, or I contacted the board, that we don't have a voting number. I want to know why, and I don't believe that this has only been since March. I believe it's been for a number of years that these voting numbers weren't out there. I'd like to know why it's never been taken care of.
Okay, well, I can't agree with you on that because it has. So if you're talking about me personally,
No, I
yeah,
didn't.
well, I want to address it. Me personally, week one on the job 3.5 years ago, when I figured out how this system works, I was absolutely angry about how it was being done. So I personally wrote the new policy letters, wrote the draft letters, wrote the whole system, gave it to the board, we debated it, and we approved it. So, but what I cannot do is, I don't work in the office. I'm a volunteer. I'm supposed to be retired. I'm not doing a very good job of that at all. But ask my wife if you don't believe me. But I'm spending a lot of time on a lot of things at Treetop. But what I do not do is go back and forth with all of the owners of all the units that don't have voting members. As I said, when I took this job, we were just a couple more than we needed to not have a quorum. We had a lot of open voting members. And as Tracy just said, we have 2 slots open right now. Now, why do we have these slots coming up since March? Because we've had a lot of exits. We've had a number of, Tracy, Tracy does this. Can you talk about the exits and how that's affected us? And the lady that her daughter just called and she's not capable anymore. This stuff hits us on a Tuesday afternoon and suddenly you have no voting member. Then you have to run this process that I described. That takes a minimum of 30 days, make it 45 by the time you get it all arranged, and maybe 75 days if you have more ballots than that. So it takes some time to get a voting member. Tracy, talk about how you do this.
Yeah, the 30 days that you have to give them, if somebody decides they want to exit and they no longer own that unit and they were a voting member, then they have to be replaced. And that can happen at any given time in the year. So if it happens right before any kind of voting or election, then we're stuck having to replace them. So it's going to happen occasionally where, there's that gap having that voting member. Does that make sense?
And we certainly have had people step forward and say, listen, I'll just volunteer. I'll be the voting member. You need a voting member for that minute, you got me. That's opposed to everything that we replaced when we set this new system up. The board or the office does not handpick voting members because it opens us up to, you're picking people that are going to vote the way that you want to. So we don't do that. Go ahead, sir, you have a comment. I can see it on your mind over there. What's your comment?
Well, I'm ready to go to the next thing.
This is the last thing, so.
Well, the other items.
Pardon?
I'm ready to go to, let's discuss other items.
That's the last item on the agenda.
I'm sorry.
Other items, yes, yes.
I understand how the voting is done now.
I understand. Does anybody have any other comments on the voting member system, suggestions?
How do you know if you have a voting member in a unit? Is there a list or a name or a group of people that know all these people? So that the people that are in that unit can contact them, outside them not contacting their constituents?
Yeah, well,
we do have a list of the individuals as of it, I would say now at this moment in time. that who is representing, and like Tracy said, we do have two that are still outstanding. That's because of all of the process, getting everything back. We had to do another runoff with individuals, and unfortunately, this runoff, we have 3 votes for one, we have 3 votes for another one. So unless we get any more in, we're gonna have to do yet again another runoff, when it comes to that. But yes, we do have an
There
updated
is a
list.
list of what unit or what voting member is in that. unit.
That is correct. So yes.
Since apparently we only have only 35 votes from the voting members and their timeshare owners, that indicates to me that that's all you have. Now you're saying you only got 2 units that don't have a voting member.
The other ones did not, the other individuals did not submit a vote. They did not send it in. There were several reminders sent out. The board members themselves called individuals, sent emails out. The finance committee sent emails out personally to the individuals that we had not heard from. So it wasn't like we just sent out the one reminder to everybody, hey, your information is out there, please vote. It was a constant reminder. Everybody within the company was doing something on a particular day to try to get these individuals in, to get their votes in. It wasn't like we just sent it out and didn't do anything further. Everybody's been very active on trying to get the timeshare owners to submit their votes. They just didn't do it.
Well, then that would indicate to me that maybe those people don't really want to be a voting member.
And let me address that. I agree with you 100%. So I asked our office, Deborah, 3 voting meetings ago, I want a scorecard. We don't care what you voted, but we want to know if you voted. And we have that now. And we will be going back to the ones who are not participating and saying, you're fired. We're not going to ask them. We're just going to say, you're not voting, you're not representing your people, you're fired. And then we'll go out with the process and we'll find a voting member and we'll vote. I agree with you 100%. And when Ron calls a meeting of the finance committee, which I get to sit in on every week, and last week we all decided, the finance committee and me, we got to get these votes in. We got to push these people to vote on this because this is an important thing we're talking about. I took on all the private owners, and the finance committee took on all of the timeshare voting members, and we split it all up, and we emailed, we phone called, we voicemailed everybody. I mean, we can only beg them. That's all we can do. But they will be removed if they're showing a consistent record of not voting. Consistent means probably 2 in a row, certainly 3.
Debbie Dawkins, Unit 70. I was wondering, for the voting member, when they become that, do they have knowledge of their responsibility, like they're supposed to contact the other weeks? Is there like a list of what that entails and expectations?
No, they do not. And that's the next thing that we will do is produce, not a policy letter, but a guidance letter saying, if you're going to be a voting member, here are the expectations from the board and your constituents. This is what you need to agree to generally before you raise your hand and volunteer. Yeah, and we will put that together.
Yeah, I just wondered that over the years, because if they are never contacting the other weeks, and if the other week owners cannot contact them, then they are definitely not representing anyone. So, that sounds good. Yeah.
I agree. It's not perfect, and we're trying to get it closer to perfect. And actually, this pops up now that we got this behind us, the budget and the vote. That's popping up to a high priority of what we're going to be doing. I expect we'll have an answer by the annual meeting in March. Okay, if there's nothing else on the voting member system, then it's anything else anybody wants to talk about. Yes, sir.
Tom Manley, Unit 62. And a lot of the correspondence was sent out prior to this meeting. I found fascinating the issues that went back and forth between the condominium board and the village board. And so in terms of all those issues, is everything pretty much resolved, at least as, we've kind of, they're doing this, we're doing that, and they're still getting to use some of the common area things just because it would be difficult to police, I can imagine that. So is that pretty well put to rest, at least for now?
Pretty well, and as you maybe could read between the lines on when it all happened, there was a lot of drama. There was a lot of drama between the boards, the staff, and so on and so splitting, us terminating the property manager, then taking that property manager. So a lot was going on. Right now, meaning for the last months, it's been very calm. We're not hearing anything out of them. But I still believe we need to do more. The position of this board was, we weren't there to kick them out. In fact, we embraced the fact that we should continue to operate the way we had always operated. Our only point was, Treetop Village Board cannot continue to assess our owners for 100% of all these common assets and then give them away to our next door neighbor. We just can't do that. So we approached them. The approach was, pay us some fee, token fee, help maintain our roads that you walk over all the time, and our swimming pools and docks and so on and so forth. Their answer was, we're not paying you a dime. We've never done it, and we're not going to do it now. So that's how it all came about. Well, you know what? We probably welcome them back again. What we suggested was, what about, and again, we're talking about our vehicles, our office, our living facilities, our docks. I mean, you've seen the one. Significant amount of assets. We pay all the taxes, the property, we have insurance, the maintenance, etc., refurbishments. We suggested $10 per timeshare a week. Have it all. Just have it all. I think it would have come out to about $24,000 a year. Just to give us something that I can tell our owners that they're contributing something. But they didn't do it. But again, I'm getting off the point. There's no drama today. I think it's public news now that the property manager that we terminated went to them. She's been terminated from them now, so we're not sure where all that's going. I mean, pretty much that's general knowledge in the community right now. But no drama. I mean, actually, we're talking to the board a little bit. But it was a lot of drama in the beginning.
Could have made us a 6-week mini-serve. PBS.
Oh, I wish I could tell you everything.
And that's gonna brought in extra income for us.
That's right. Wait, that's a good point. Hey, yeah, and residuals off of this could be part of our supplemental income.
A treetop period of ours would be very.
Yeah. As the treetops turn. Any questions or comments about anything else?
In some communication unit had said, 61-102, sorry. In some communication you had mentioned that you're going to set up possibly another Zoom meeting or a person-to-person meeting before the end of the year for information. Is that right?
Yes, because as I said, this would have been Zoom if it was at all possible. I told you the reason why it wasn't. And I just asked the board in our meeting this morning, how quick could we get a meeting together based on, because now we know what our assessments are, and we know a lot now that we didn't know this morning. How quick can we get a real Zoom meeting together? Nobody has to be there. We'll do it all the time. And we're going to try to do that. Because first thing is, all of this information is going to go out to everybody. Give them a little time to digest it, then announce a Zoom meeting. And we intend, as I said, for every meeting in the future to be Zoom. We've got all the equipment, we got all the time. We need the internet. Anything else?
Yeah, W Unit 70. I personally wanted to thank Bob for all the work and time and effort he's devoted to our treetop community for 3.5 years as president. I know that he spent, hours and hours and hours, and I feel like his dedication, he is very altruistic for the good of our community, And, I just personally appreciate it, and then also all the board and the work they've done, so I just wanted to thank him.
Ma'am?
Madonna Williams, Unit 101. I just want to mention that I've gone back and read the bylaws.
Oh, we say that again.
I've gone and read the bylaws that are out on your website. And nowhere did I find that the bylaws were changed where you followed that all of the buildings were supposed to keep the appearance of what Treetop Village was originally done. But apparently those bylaws were changed. And I have to admit, your house is a nice house, but not in the village, because it's too monstrous. And I'm sorry to say that, but maybe you need to know who wrote that, and I'll take the responsibility for writing it. But it's, for the rest of the village, it just doesn't fit. That's all I want to say.
Well, I'm not sure how to address that. When I got permission from the board to do what I did, and of course I had to submit all my plans and all of my blueprints and all of my specifications, and I was not a board member. In fact, I didn't even know a board member, but I had to submit it all through email. It was approved. I'm not the biggest house in the village. Dave Gus, who just left, has the biggest house in the village. He was, if not the original buyer here, in the first dozen original buyers. So big houses in the village. My house has always been a big house. It's a little bigger now than it was, but it was built that way by Bernie Little back in 1983. So I can't take responsibility for that. Everything I changed on my house went through a board, and they all approved it. So I'm not sure how to answer that. Yes, my house is bigger than the average house here. It's not the biggest house. I tried to renovate it very nice so that it shows well in the community and, you know, makes the community maybe look a little nicer. I'm spending money landscaping, common land, spending, you know, that I don't even own to keep it all manicured, and I would like to see everybody doing that. I would like to see everybody putting some effort into their place. So I'm not sure how to address that. My house is big. Yes, it's bigger than the average house. It was all approved.
Carl Grattendick, Unit 104. Of the units that become private units in the future, will there be any more restrictions on what is built and what isn't built? When I bought into this thing back in the 1980s, the character of this entire village was going to continue with the look of the treetops. As the young lady over here said, you've got a beautiful house. I saw it in the preview magazine or something this morning. It's a monster though. It doesn't fit the neighborhood. And if we go and put helter-skelter, those kind of houses just anywhere where the buildings are going to be private now, or any of the other private units there, this place turns into not that quaint little village that you're trying to promote in the newspapers and the magazines, and the character that you talk about what you're trying to establish here at Treetop. You're part of the problem.
Okay.
I mean, I appreciate everything you're talking about and all you do, but your house is part of the problem. If that's what continues in this place, you're going to lose the magic of Treetop Village.
My house, the only difference between my house now and what it was in 1983 is I built a garage with a little apartment on top.
Second story.
And it's got a little apartment up there. Because that's where we lived while we were renovating the main house.
Looks like you got about 5 stories of steps in it.
Well, the house is no bigger than.
Well, it doesn't fit the character. We could have, argue about the individual.
It's always existed. It's always been the way it looks now, except from the street. I have new siding, new windows.
It doesn't fit the character of the village.
Well, let me tell you this, I'm not gonna tear it down.
Well, I bet you won't. But you should not have been allowed to build it in the way that you did.
You need to talk to the board, the previous board.
I
about
think
that.
I am right now.
You're
No,
talking
we
to.
didn't serve on that board.
No,
Well,
well,
there's
John
a-
was here.
There's a good majority of the people here.
And I know.
Oh, yeah, John.
So it was a group indication that that's what he was all right to do to build, and that's fine. You know what I'm saying? I think everyone should be given that opportunity to improve his property to his satisfaction, as long as he does what the board says he can do. Now, I do understand the importance of maintaining a village, but are we going to encourage people to come into this establishment that we want to sell these units to? What kind of renovations are they going to be able to make in order to still maintain some kind of a village atmosphere?
Yeah,
Or
and
going to
it's,
put restrictions or guidelines or, you know,
they're already there, they're in place, they're in place. If you look at our governing documents, it says if you want to make changes to the exterior of your structure, you have to get it approved by the board.
or friendly, you know.
So I fell under those same rules, and I was not on the board. As I said, I didn't even know a board member. So I submitted all my plans and got them approved. If we consolidate and sell a unit, they move in here under the same restrictions that we all live under right now. Means they can't paint their house pink, they can't stucco it, they have to go to the board with any structural changes that they want to make. So it's no different today or will be tomorrow than it was 40 years ago.
And like I say, you add the garage, or these people are going to get that opportunity to add a garage if feasible for their terrain. They're going to still maintain or be able to put up something that's going to be protected. I know I like protect very much. So we're going to give those opportunity, or they're going to be left to the board to make that decision.
There's a big difference, you know, there are several unique lots in Treetop Village. Mine would be one of them because I'm not a traditional circle, a 36-foot diameter, and everything outside of that is common land. I think there are 4 total that would fit into that category. On those 4, the land, I own the land. I mean, I didn't intrude on any common land, I own the land. If you're on a 36-foot circle, which only extends a few feet past your structure, you can't build a garage or a carport or anything else. So, I mean, I bought here because, I mean, I didn't know the history, I didn't know much about it, but I did look at the governing documents, and I realized that if I come up with a plan that the board would approve, I had a shot. They approved it, I did it. I did it on my land.
I do understand what you're saying about probably the preservation of Treetop. It's one of the things that as a buyer, I absolutely love about the village. I'm very, Bob, the whole board knows I'm very passionate about our architecture. And I think that there's probably value in the future. The private homes, Bob's a perfect example. The Koffler homes, built and owned by the Brown and Koffler families, those are have their own look. They still fit within the village, and they really fall into their own category. Whereas I'm a private owner, but I have a tree lot. And so, you know, every board member that comes on comes with their own perspective, their own agenda, or why they want to join or what they're passionate about. I can say that you do have someone on the board, and this board is very supportive of the beautiful, cohesive look. And so my goal would be that we ask anyone that they keep in line with that, and our bylaws should protect that. There's value in keeping it mid-century modern, even when there's certain, you know, lighting that's going up, things like that. I probably just would feel that says, hey, we really have that mid-century feel. And so I could see where you're coming from, and there's value in the future of, you know, we want to, not everything can maybe be the exact character of before, but that distinctness is what sets us apart, and we market on that. So I think that we'll continue to protect it. Those larger certain private homes were built
privately and did not adhere to, they did, and it was a different board when you put your plans through. So I hope that helps answer your question a little bit. I know that how we want to do renovation, it's important to really keep in line with